80 crore people, we are giving them subsistence, food, etc. We cannot survive by doing this. We have to see how each and every individual, 5%, 10% politicians or etc. They're also parasites, you can say, because good number of them, they are collecting 40% brokerage in their contracts, etc. I'm not saying all politicians, I'm saying good percentage of them. Naturally, they are also parasites. Good number of bureaucracy, good number of corporates also the same. So there is something wrong. That total net contribution by an individual to collective societal strength or civilizational strength is limited. We have to work out this model. We want to fight Islamic radicalism. We can't fight Islamic radicalism or Chinese authoritarianism by debates and discussions. We can, if we create a model which is effective, which optimizes our strength, it creates top class generals to top class academics to top class professionals to top class manual workers everywhere, and gives them right opportunities. Rest assured that this civilization will expand the same way a Chinese would be eager to be part of India. Today, good number of Pakistanis are eager to be part of India. But if we rediscover our civilizational strength, the whole world will be eager to look forward to us. There will be resistances, I'm not saying. So I have mentioned about R&D also, that we have to create differentiated from basic education. Basic education should not be whether London Bridge is falling or sinking is not the poetry we have to teach. We have to teach children how to drink water. We have to teach children how to eat food. We have to teach them how to look after their health. We have to teach them how to be a good member of their family. We have to teach them how to be a good member of society. We have to teach them how to have skills so that they can gainfully engage themselves and contribute. Then we have to teach how to excel and how to be leader. And leader is not that only one has to be leader and rest have to be follower. Even while teaching, I was saying, in every situation, somebody can be a leader. When I went to a gymnasium, which was managed by a government, and I said, that man, you are the leader, because he's trained not just to become leader. He had undergone detailed training, comprehensive training. He tells others can suggest it. So in this situation, even he can be leader. So we should create not one, but an army of leaders, and create, as I said, R&D, I mentioned, universities to defense research laboratories to everywhere, see that, there's optimum, this thing for innovation. Finally, I would say, I had mentioned everything. Finally, I would say, yes, this thing, I would conclude. The strength and resilience of a state, society, and civilization rests upon its ability to consistently throw up powerful ideas and refine these regularly through practices with sole objective of improving collective plight of its people. So when we talk about, we have to enhance comprehensive strength of India as a civilization. And once we are strong, we also have to strengthen and empower people around us. In past also, when India, I'm pre-medieval India, I'm talking about, that India was strong, everybody benefited from India, isn't it? We were not the only one. This 3.5% of land accounting for 25% of human resource or population means what? This place was really good. People came from each and every other part of the world. It was only rich and developed places are prosperous. But what does it teach? Even if you are advanced, every day you have to improve. You can't afford to stagnate. Moment you bring an entitlement, Raja Bharat's story, I said, this is the surest route to decline. So this is dharma we are talking about. Dharma is not going to temple or church or worshipping God A or God B or God C. Dharma is more about following what is right in a given situation, even at the cost of your interest. They say that, bodily pleasure, food, etc., everybody fulfills. But even an action you are doing in pursuit of fame or name, that is adharma in our concept. And this is why when I'm saying indocracy is driven by ancient values, do what is right and don't worry whether people give you a name or fame or you succeed or fail, doesn't matter. And this is where Gita comes. So not that 72 virgins are desperately waiting and you wait and kill some fellow human beings. I don't think this is where I have an objection. And then you participate in all kinds of organized crime. I have forgotten to mention, before I conclude, I must mention you organized crime. Few years back, Dawood Ibrahim and other gangs, we mentioned that how a large section of our Muslim population, in name of jihad, in name of Islam, they have been sucked into organized crime. This Dawood Ibrahim company also, I'm not saying it myself, it's not a classified information that I'm sharing and violating any rule. There are a lot of research papers by former generals, former securocrats of other countries I've also mentioned it in a paper of mine that was published in a journal named Frontline, that how a mercenary criminal group of Dawood Ibrahim became a strategic asset of Pakistani ISI. Pakistani ISI, for we all know, for all practical purposes, was promoted by American establishment. Good number of their dirty work was handed over to them, and they were exploiting India as a market or trying to keep us bogged down. Now their masters have changed and Chinese have come. So this, in the name of Islam, sections of our Muslim population, they have been sucked into this organized crime, and no movement, no insurgency, no terrorism, nothing goes, is sustained by funds of taxpayers. Everywhere it is funded by this organized crime. Let me tell you, even Central Intelligence Agency of America was charged with, trafficking cocaine in their own country, Iran-Contra deal. So good number. That is why, they brought in independent oversight committee, because they felt these organized criminals and these criminals in state, they work together to promote organized crime. They did it in the name of secrecy or promoting their state interest. There's a serious apprehension that, so-called such agencies and institutions of many developing countries, they are hand in glove with these organized crime networks. And without patronage from our police and security establishment, there is absolutely no way that these organized crime networks, dominated, run by Islamists, patronized by Pakistani, ISI, could have survived. So tolerance to corruption, this Western democracies model. So good number of people in security and enforcement agencies, they also think, okay, they are promoting their own interest because the system is rigged. Good number of people, they have rags to riches story in corporate sector. Why should they not steal? And once they start doing it, our security gets threatened. So this is why I'm saying, we need comprehensive reform everywhere. So again, about India, the second point I'm saying, a society, a great society and civilization like India should not aspire to enhance quality of existence and destiny of our own people, but also that of our own entire mankind. By preaching Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, nothing happens. If our own systems are corrupt, if our own political processes where such criminals are able to hijack and form dynastic parties. So when we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it sounds like a joke. It's nobody takes us seriously unless and until we really practice it. So we have to, as I said, we have to improve the plight of entire mankind by setting up the best possible examples or acting as role models. Speech is not going to be sufficient, that this is what is written in our scriptures. And people are quoting scriptures and making money and making fame. So it sounds very ridiculous to me. They should be strong enough to persuade and even defend their model by use of force whenever use of force becomes inevitable or unavoidable. So that is where I say wars have to be fought. And finally, I say rise of a plural and democratic India as a major global stakeholder is critical for not only 1.4 billion Indians, but the larger global strategic balance and security of mankind. I conclude. Thank you very much for giving me this audience and patience listening. Thank you.
It was very rich session. And I definitely agree that today our democracy, somehow the dharma is detached from the democracy. And going forward, we need a system where dharma is inclusive. And your term of Indocracy will definitely be a very big game changer in this aspect if we make it reach to more and more larger audience.
I have been knocked out of the system. Indocracy has been knocked out. And 10 years of my life has been knocked out because of Indocracy. So who is responsible for this? I don't know. But unlike Nambi Narayan, I have not gone to jail, but I have definitely been knocked out. But, this is a price people have to pay. And hopefully Indocracy comes in not as a perfect prescription, but as a kind of starting point for some discussion, comes up, and young people like you and your friends and others, they take it up. Sorry for interrupting.
No, sir. We as an organization are really hopeful for a brighter future. So definitely there will be a day when we are full-fledgedly going to imbibe the idea of Indocracy in our system. And it would be the only thing which would prevail. Since we have been talking about threats to Bharat as a civilizational identity, I would request you to talk a bit more about cyber war, which you have been talking about in various other platforms as well. So would be really helpful and would benefit the audience if you can throw some light upon this topic, and how we as a democracy are prepared to fight this war.
This cyber war has been a game changer in multiple ways. You know, it has enhanced lethality of existing weapon system and everywhere. Uh, what was the name of this thing which Israelis used to dislocate Iran's nuclear power program? What is Stuxnet or what is? I'm forgetting the name of that virus they planted in Iranian nuclear program was dislocated. So what I'm trying to say that this has been a game changer in multiple ways, both offensive and defensive ways, you can say. You know, one of the dimensions Chinese have been claiming that they are developing eighth and ninth generation of warfare, and when this generation of warfare comes, they will be able to ensure that even nuclear weapons will become dysfunctional. Though a lot of people are having different ideas, but mathematics, algorithms have enormous potential, isn't it? With quantum computing and there's the whole thing can go to an entirely different level. So fact is that this is where we need a much better ecosystem for enhancement of technology, retaining high-end manpower, creating right ambience in our universities, and of course wherever required, having collaboration. This cyber war I had also mentioned earlier, that without going into battlefield, you can paralyze entire society. Everything is dependent upon cyber, right from your stock markets to your water distribution to your electricity. Everything can be paralyzed. Life can be made miserable. 10 to 12 years back, also, when Western strategists they started saying a war in virtual world is as good as war. But today we realize that a war in virtual world will be dangerous. It can create chaos, isn't it? If your entire infrastructure or trains or flights, we saw that few days back, we don't know whether it was an attack or it was a failure. That entire flights in the United States they were struggling to take off and land, and for a long time this thing was dysfunctional. So what I'm trying to say that at this point of time, technology has brought us to a level where that without getting into this thing, satellite warfare, for example, we talk about that once a country is able to attack satellites, what dangers can be in. So existing weapon system, military weapon system, these are also supplemented by cybers, and cyber is again an independent warfare. In this cyber warfare, one actor is state. That states are, without telling others, they are developing it and they're keeping it ready. Sometimes cyber wars can be as bad as weapons of mass destruction, because if they disrupt civilian life, it can have far dangerous consequences. You can be paralyzed. But then there are non-state actors. So these are things. But of course, the state, we have to develop, keep on building our better cyber capacity. But at the second level, I would say that access to this technology has to be restricted. Solution to this lies to a great extent in governance, because we can't prevent technology's rise. Sometimes we have to see that technology does not get into wrong hand, and state is always in a stronger position. Another threat which is there, that if some of these elements, rogue elements, criminalized elements, they capture part of state intelligence agencies, what happens? Then people become genuinely vulnerable. So good number of solution to cyber attack is not only building and investing in R&D or investing in human resources, is also in ensuring integrity of state institutions. We have secrecy laws, ensuring that secrecy wherever is there is backed by adequate oversight, so that I would also say, when war is a war through every possible means, there are no ethics or no morality in war. So organized crime networks, it is believed, I'm not saying again any state secret, that is Bombay's, for example, you take a case study of Bombay's underworld. At one point of time, they were smuggling gold, then they got into real estate, then they drug, a good number of things. Underworld, this threat was there. But later they realized that, how many sharpshooters they can have. They started patronizing sections of police officers. There is no data as such, but some researchers are there. They say somehow, for a variety of reasons, whatever they wanted, judiciary was able to come with a decision that favored them. And they kept deviating from A, B, and C to another industry. So they become a financially self-sustaining unit themselves. They got into extortion. Once they were into extortion, they got into money laundering. Their clients for money laundering were very corrupt people in politics, etc. They started investing in movies. They started investing in politics. They started investing in mining. So this kind of parallel system has come up, and they captured this thing also. There is a book, not one place I had committed error by saying lies, spies, and algorithm. That's a separate book. This is only lies and spies. This book is written by one Australian gentleman and young man, and he mentions that how Chinese intelligence is trying to capture wings of United States, wings of economic and other security agencies, etc. So, worst part of this thing is that certain state actors, unaccountable, very powerful, cyber weapon system gives them enormous strength, isn't it? And open societies, whether United States of America, if that is vulnerable, imagine our vulnerability. If they are able to capture some of our key state institutions, and there are not sufficient safeguards, so what is going to happen? People will be vulnerable. Our economic growth will be vulnerable. Our corporate leaders will also be vulnerable. We had one case how a small sub-inspector or whatever, I wouldn't like to name, he was trying to blackmail the richest man of India. So imagine if the combination of this happens, that where our institutions are subverted and cyber cyber weapon gives so much of power. This is one aspect. Second aspect, I had mentioned that how in warfare system also you can paralyze an enemy right from their weapon system to their civilian, create confusion, create propaganda, create a whole lot of things. So this is very powerful, and our fight should be should be at multi-end level, retaining talent, collaborating wherever required, but at the same time streamlining institutions. These are the way forward. Where do we stand? I don't talk about it, because by talking about it, even if I know something, I will be giving some information about our institutions to our adversaries, which is avoidable.
Thank you, Jitendra ji. Stuxnet, was it?
Yes, Stuxnet was this. Yes, Stuxnet was this. As I said, following second COVID attack, I am struggling now. And people say vaccine also had some impact.
The one thing that worries me or like is in my head is how long we have come for, how much time do we actually have to combat the challenges, basically like the brain drain from India or the Islamic radicalization. Do we have enough time to even combat those, or have we gone too far in our, in this war?
I always think there's time. As long as we are alive, there's always time. And whatever has happened, we can do nothing about it. Now, this brain drain, when we are talking about it, is not a simple problem, isn't it? And many a times I said that even after independence, these former colonial powers, for whatever, maybe design, maybe accident, etc., it's not that it's always bad. They also wanted to have some of our people, isn't it? So we have been exporting very good number of high quality, high-end manpower to them. Of course, it is a loss to us, but it is gain also. Good number of them are, they may not have developed or achieved whatever they have achieved. So I don't think that everything is bad. There's always a silver lining. They have forged a huge amount of knowledge. And when we are talking about Indian civilization, they should be part of it. Now the challenge is, how to retain some of them, how to get some of them back. And wherever we can't get back, how to build a mutually empowering, mutually sustainable kind of relationship with them, where our corporates or our economic or other things also they benefit. So whatever has happened, we should not worry about it. Yes, we should try and see that people within the country they get best opportunity, and that is where reform in corporate sector becomes very important. And these have to be meritocratic. This is where reform in bureaucracy becomes important. That if there's a young, bright person has bright ideas, he should not face an army of extortionists and negative people in state. That person gets discouraged. So this is where I'm talking about Indocracy. You would have noticed in Indocracy, we are talking about India and Cressy also, because we have to concede there has been huge amount of development in the West. That is not perfect, but we have to borrow those things from them also. So under these circumstances, if we work about this comprehensive development, as a civilization, we can have a more mutually empowering and sustainable linkages with the West also, but this will not be possible by subservience wherever required. We are asserting on some issues. We have to assert. We have to deal with them at a level playing way. But having an Indian origin prime minister in Britain or having so many Indian origin CEOs is a matter of strength. So it's not that, Even Brendan, despite having so many disadvantages, has a silver lining as well. So it depends how we harness this and how we optimize this from this point of time. Thank you.
You said indocracy. Does it mean Indian bureaucracy? That is what you're trying to explain?
No, not at all, sir. Indocracy is a refined version of Indian democracy, a more advanced version of democracy that is backed by ancient Indian values and ethos and scientific principles and practices of political participation, political representation, and governance. Scientific one, devised in the West. So it's a fusion of both India and West. Values are Indian, principles and practices and elements are West. Bureaucracy is westernized and deserves to be condemned into dustbin. We have the most horrible form of bureaucracy, to say.
He's asking who prevented you from publishing your views and why?
Recently there was a rule that people who have worked in certain sensitive organizations, they cannot publish certain things. So I was not discussing what I had done. One of my former mentors, I would say, not boss, he was too senior. He said, why don't you publish in the form of fiction? I said, sir, I want to look forward. When I started doing certain things, and some of these are very microscopic element is there in a court document also. And on that basis, when I started talking about it, and I aspired in 2012 to step out of government and set up a platform for a research and advisory institution and develop this concept of indocracy. So they were naturally, in my so-called other world, there were people who were keeping me under watch, and they were very uncomfortable with this idea because far too many things I had known, which I don't want to discuss, like money laundering or certain things I mentioned. It's not hearsay. I had absolutely indicting this thing, and I refused to be party to those people. And this is why I mentioned no less than Mr. Manohar Parrikar counseling me that, you don't go too much against the system. So I learned and I realized that, from 70s onwards, so 60s onward, not a single defense deal in any of the developing countries have been clean. It cannot be. Not that those countries are responsible, but, global dynamics is such. I also said that there is no way this organized crime network, which is being, we blame Pakistanis, could be patronized only by them. There is bound to be some patronage or this thing of some other force. Chinese have managed to defy that, come up, but somehow Indians have been very soft. I don't know what the reason is. We did not have that straight ground. So when I wanted to bring this book, and I said, fine, who is stealing how much of money? I'm not interested. Who has borrowed, transferred how much of money to their offshore accounts? I will not mention. In one of my diplomatic position, I was handling consular cooperation, this thing. And a large number of matters, those were lying dead. And I went and I revived, and for me, these were serial numbers. And one after another, I started knocking it out. And I started getting evidences that people who claimed in India, very influential people, not ordinary people, that this is the source of my investment, that source did not have money. Right now, the whole business is far more sophisticated. So what I'm trying to say that one element domestically, one element somewhere here, one element internationally, if I say there'll be unnecessary this thing. So all these elements, they felt I may say something or do something that will be very much harmful. Right now, of course, I'm just one of the bureaucrats, but wherever I was, you will notice, even when I have been speaking just pleasantries in a foreign country, the cabinet ministers did not get as much attention as Indian audience, or otherwise they paid attention to me. Even now, number of heads of the governments and states in a foreign country, they are my good friends. Of course, I don't keep in touch with them because they said, you give me the best advice. So I say, and here also I have engaged virtually people at a very high level, including at the highest possible level, many former prime ministers or this thing. And they taught me. Of course, I also contributed some ideas. So with accumulated ideas, the thing people felt that, whatever I'm going to say will threaten them. I said, well, it will not threaten anyone individually. It will threaten systems. That, all these years, if for sake of patriotism, I said from the age of 3, all this thing I have lived, not paid a bribe to anyone, not done this thing, and how dangerous it is, for people. But still, I'm thankful to Modi government, to Prime Minister Modi, that I have not been killed on Indian soil by use of Indian resources, even though efforts were made. So this is a brilliant point, and I'm speaking at this platform. So naturally, anyone who is an innovator in this country has certain ideas, is bound to be killed. And certain aspects of covert warfare I had. I doubt anyone had. I don't have legend and stories like my many esteemed seniors. They did this, and these stories I don't have. But I'm sure some people definitely know because, as I said, in many cases, few very difficult situations were there, and force is not the only way to win a war. Sometimes, a needle can help you win a war, and then tank can fail there. So we used wherever needle was required or smaller things were required. So naturally, these global forces were there, local forces were there. Some people about whom I knew too much, they were also nervous. And some of my former friends and colleagues were far more nervous. They did the job. And they would have, I don't know who could have hacked my computer, but they can't hack my mind. And even if I don't say anything in detail, when I discuss something like this, at least few people should take interest. And this is what I'm saying. It is possible. If Chinese can come from that level to here, you can also come. And it's not that, we have reached a point of no return. We are still growing at a reasonable pace, but this growth is not sufficient. So the biggest strength a country or a society can have is ideas and people who create ideas. If you have ideas, a lot of disadvantages you can compensate. And anyway, I stop at that. I don't want to say any further.
Earlier, I asked the question related to cyber war. So, sir, why aren't we, or probably we are leveraging, but I'm not aware, but why aren't we leveraging on our regional blocks to come together jointly and create an infrastructure to somehow finish this impediment of cyber war or somehow control it? Or are we already doing it?
What we are doing as government, I don't know, because I'm out of this thing, and even if a little bit of information I have, this confidentiality is there, so better not to speak. But we don't need to have a regional block for cyber. I don't know, cyber is very fashionable in young people, and everyone who's a doctorate in humanities is also talking about cyber war and cyber this thing. Of course, cyber impacts, isn't it? It is impacting our day-to-day this thing, both at a level of individual and at the level of society. I would say that whatever is happening at this level R&D, innovation, technology, that should go on. I'm not saying that this should be obstructed, but regional bloc you are talking about, I have always maintained that some of these democracies, some of these countries around us, these can be outposts of our national security or civilizational security, not national security. Whether Sri Lanka, I found in many ways is more Indian than most of India. A Buddhist country. So is around, Myanmar not doing well. Thailand also has huge amount of this thing. So this regional cooperation, this network is there. As I said, Rajniti means in our this thing is supreme policy, a large umbrella under which rest of these things flourish. So this is where we need to focus on governance. Also, we can't say A can be done and B can't be done. I said integrated development, integrated institutional infrastructure for governance. So that focus has to be there. Yes, cyber, we are fortunate. We have a highly qualified people. We had IITs quite early. We had someone, Yashji said, I was born in 68. I'm not a young person, but Yashji is definitely senior to me, 63 graduate of IIT, and 68 he was recruited to do PhD. So what I'm trying to say, that we have excellent infrastructure. We should focus. We should, instead of doing something, in innovation, what niche area we are capable of, instead of replicating something. What is our strength? Where are we, and where can we go about, and where can we come across and prevent and do something, prevent these attacks and do something far more innovative. So this attack this capacity cannot be developed by government alone. Government has to depend upon IITs or similar institutions, not necessarily IIT. Anyone in any of these RECs or defense research laboratories, etc., they are there. In defense, what happens? Your orientation is different. There has to be much closer coordination. We've always maintained between universities and these laboratories and security forces and agencies. And that is required. I think there's a general crisis of leadership in most of these institutions that we are saying. And I believe that apart from it, we also need not only to teach about leadership, but create better ambience for leadership, because the best innovator need not be the best leader, isn't it? Leader, or you can say coordinator, not I would say the same. So we need to see that, we create this thing and we handle problem everywhere. Now people say, oh, in Jamtara, these cyber hackers are doing, and they are doing this thing. So my solution on governance side was that if we create, rather than having a deputy commissioner or DC or collector, whatever, if we create, someone like Yashji, these elderly people, you make them create a new position in some of these British cities as Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor does not act. He is just a symbolic man, more like a guardian. We should not copy them. We should have Nagara Vibhavak, some guardian of a city, knowledgeable man. Should not be able to interfere, should just be coordinate, but has all the wisdom, all experience, isn't it? Heading this thing. So we have these things, and see that in people in Jamtara or wherever, everywhere, in every district, young people are educated, trained, and they're given some kind of employment. Apart from my normal work, it is this curiosity which has been driving me to these places. One foundation I was associated with, and there was a Jamaican lady and a very brilliant and intelligent lady, a few years older than me. And her brother had been killed in street violence, and she did not get married, and vegan, you can say. Every action of hers was so honorable, and some wrong kind of people in India got associated with her. But what she did, she started recruiting young people, training them for jobs, and giving them some kind of hope and this thing in their lives. Because most of these young people, black young boys who were indulging in knifing, this, that, etc., they were directionless. They didn't know how to do, isn't it? So when you're talking about cybersecurity and this particular, if a state is developing, that's a separate matter. But where these frauds, cons, etc., this is happening because people find it is far more lucrative. You don't have to do much. So fault or solution does not lie with developing cyber only. That is essential. When Chinese want to attack our system, we also have to have not only defensive, but we require offensive also, because offense is always the best defense, to paralyze their system also. So that thing should keep going on. But this kind of individual attack, cyber, etc., is not possible here. And even for that attack, state is attacking, only government cannot do. You can't say, okay, let us close down JNU. JNU is a bunch of idiots. One of the best centers of genetic engineering to sociology to this thing. Everything has a requirement. So this is why I'm saying that, yes, cyber is a problem. When cyber threat is coming, we can't be discussing something else. We have to specifically discuss, but then we have to go a little further to see that we create a good ambiance, see that we also handle accompanied problems. So instead of these boys who are hacking computers, if you are really brilliant, we should come and hack now Pakistani system if you can, or hack somebody other system, or hack some other hacker. So bigger problem is more with the kind of governance apparatus we have, which is quite Mamluk, Mongol, and extortion, collecting kind of thing. This has to be disbanded